Welcome back to Studio 10. Now, in the late 90s, Brisbane band Savage Garden burst onto the charts with hits like Truly, Madly, Deeply, To the Moon and Back, and also I Want You, to name just a few.
Yeah, frontman Darren Hayes and his music partner Daniel Jones made Savage Garden a worldwide phenomenon. In the decade following, Hayes started a solo career, but he soon fell off the radar.
Now, he's back with his first new music in 10 years, and he's got quite the harrowing and emotional story to tell of where he's been and why he's back. Ange caught up with Darren Hayes last week in Sydney, and here's part one of their riveting interview.
I want to live like an animal, careless and free. Like an animal. I don't want to live, I want to run through the jungle, the wind in my hair and the sand at my feet.
Well, hello. I can't believe we're finally seeing you face to face back in Oz.
I know, it's sort of not acceptable really. You should give me a good talking to, but it's great to be home.
No, I do understand. And when you come home, you decide to do it in a big way. How was Mardi Gras?
I'm still buzzing.
I'll bet.
It was unbelievable.
Just as affirmation was starting up, he said, I want to thank you for loving me.
Even when I didn't love myself.
Even when I didn't love myself. What did you mean?
You're going to make me cry. I've been married for 17 years. I came out by telling the world that I married Richard, my husband. And I have to thank you and the media and the public for always being so kind about my sexuality, because I was one of those people, even from a child, people told me I was gay before I even realised what that meant. I married a woman very sincerely, and everyone was like saying to her, he's gay. You know, and I was like, why does everyone think I'm gay? It was really hard for me. It was just such a struggle for me. So at the height of the Savage Garden fame, that's when I was accepting that, went into marriage therapy, and it was a deeply sad time for me. Didn't want to leave my wife. She's one of the bravest women in the world. She let me go. She said, you have to go. It was heartbreaking for me because I had all of this fame and all of this attention, but I felt like an imposter. I had all of this shame around being gay. I felt like I didn't have any role models or anyone to turn to. Now, that's not the truth. I'm almost 50. Back in our generation, it was very, very hard to look to see a possible future for somebody like me. So what I was saying to the audience was, thank you for just accepting me for who I was back then, because I was in so much turmoil. I was in so much depression and sadness. Not to negate any of the joy. I mean, it was real. I was living my dream. But there were many, many years of sadness for me at the height of that fame. So to come home, to be happily out and dressed like a flamingo on steroids, and just be so comfortable in my skin, you know, and it was very emotional for me. And I meant what I said.
What you've said then and what you said the other night, do you have any understanding of what that would mean to so many fans out there grappling with similar issues?
I do. My biggest piece of advice and the biggest thing that I wanted to impart was, I am an example of someone who survived and thrived. And I want to keep it light, but there were times when I was absolutely suicidal. I know that there are people who will watch this interview and people who write to me who feel like that. I do a lot of work talking about mental health, talking about outreach, talking about Lifeline, talking about anyone who has those kinds of thoughts, to remind them that who you are is perfect. Like, so necessary. But you don't always feel like that if you don't have the support.
Who helped you through?
Oh man. I mean, first my mum.
You haven't seen her for 3 years. I bet you gave her the biggest hug.
Yeah, it's hard. COVID was really, really hard. My mum's almost 80. And I usually come home every year, or mum comes to see me. And I grew up in a family where my father was really violent and alcoholic, and you know, obviously my mother survived that. She's an incredible survivor, and she wouldn't have been able to label why her son was able to do her hair so well or pick out her outfits. But she and I have such a special bond, and she taught me right from a very young age that I was perfect just the way that I am. literally a few hours after we finish this interview, I get to head up to Brisbane and hug my mum for the first time in 3 years. So I can't wait.
So let's try being love. Let's try being love.
You have this gift of music. And as you say, it was your dream always. When it comes to Australians on the world stage, you are right at the very top. So how do you reflect on this gift that you have as you get set to release new music for the first time in such a long time?
I understand that it's a huge privilege, and in some ways it was a wasted talent to be away for so long. I took 10 years out because I needed to live some life. You know, I was 13 when I saw Michael Jackson at the Brisbane Entertainment Centre. I had one of the cheapest tickets you could get. I don't know if you remember, but there was this rumour going around that Mike was going to perform under a hermetically sealed bubble.
Yeah.
Right? There was all this crazy tabloid stuff going around. I think it was probably him that planted it because he was really into that stuff. But it backfired and ticket sales stalled in Brisbane. So they downgraded the show to the Brisbane Entertainment Centre. And me, this poor kid from the suburbs, I suddenly got my ticket exchanged for a front row seat. 13, saw him in concert, and just, I was like, I want to do that.
I'll fly you to the moon and back if you be my baby.
10 years later, Savage Garden sold out that same arena. But I hadn't had a dream since I was 13. I hadn't even considered any other job or any other thing or whatever.
So let's try being love.
I think it's safe to say I had this mid-life reevaluation, and I took a long time out. I studied improv comedy for 3 years. Yeah, I went to the Groundling School in LA, made a lot of really great friends. I studied studio production. I helped raise a 5-year-old kid. My friend had a baby. They needed a babysitter, so 1 day a week. I had nothing going on. So I just lived life, and there was this nagging feeling of like my purpose. And I didn't tell anyone, but I can tell you that I think I had planned to just never come back. I just thought, I'll just disappear. And part of it was some of that stuff I said to you before, was that, wow, I'd never experienced being in front of my audience complete. And it makes me think, I want to pull up my sleeves. What can I do? What films can I watch? What books can I read? How can I be inspired? And it took me a long time until I had something to say. And boy, do I have something to say.
Now, Darren Hayes' brand new singles, Let's Try Being in Love and Do You Remember, are out now. And we'll have much more of that interview coming up soon in the show, including Darren's shock revelation on where his relationship stands with his former Savage Garden cohort, Daniel Jones.